Admiral Taeyang Kim stood at the observation window of the Coalition headquarters, watching the distant stars shimmer against the darkness. Behind him, the council chamber buzzed with voices from 47 different species. Most of them ignored him. They always did. A tall crystalline being stepped to the podium. Ambassador Velthra of the Kalari spoke in her musical voice, translated instantly by the neural implants everyone wore. Her words were polite but clear. The Coalition did not need humanity's military fleet. Wars were a thing of the past. Peace had lasted 10,000 years. Taeyang kept his face blank. He had heard these words many times before. 70 years ago, humanity had joined the Galactic Coalition with hope and excitement. They discovered they were not alone in the universe. But the excitement faded quickly when the other species learned where humans came from. Earth was a death world. A Class 9 planet, they called it, the highest danger rating in the galaxy. Most species came from gentle worlds with soft weather and no predators. Earth had hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, and animals that could kill in seconds. Humans evolved fighting for survival every single day. The aliens feared humanity's weapons and soldiers. They called humans barbaric, primitive, dangerous. The Coalition allowed Earth to join but kept humans at arm's length. Human ships stayed in outer sectors. Human soldiers trained alone. Human ideas were dismissed in council meetings. Taeyang turned from the window as Velthra finished speaking. The council members nodded their various heads, tentacles, and sensory organs in agreement. Then the alarm started. Red lights flashed across every surface. The neural network screamed warnings into everyone's minds. 3 colony worlds had gone silent. No communications, no life signs, just empty space where millions had lived hours before. The council chamber erupted in panic. Species that had never known violence suddenly faced something they could not understand. Taeyang moved to his station and pulled up the sensor data. His blood went cold. The readings came from the void sector, a forbidden region of space marked with ancient warnings. Massive energy signatures moved through the darkness. Structures the size of moons. Biomechanical readings that made no sense. Whatever lived there had awakened. A small craft burst out of hyperspace near the station. It tumbled and spun, barely holding together. The docking bay pulled it in with emergency tractors. Medical teams rushed to the airlock, only one being stumbled out. Ambassador Velthra screamed when she saw who it was. Her sister, Kelthra, covered in wounds that should have killed her. The medical team tried to stabilize her, but she pushed them away. She activated the craft's data recorder. The hologram showed Velthra's homeworld. Beautiful crystal cities caught the light of their sun. Then shadows fell across the sky. Ships appeared, if they could be called ships. They looked like living nightmares, metal and flesh twisted together. They fell upon the cities like locusts. The devourers tore through defenses as if they were paper. Crystal structures shattered. Millions died in minutes. The planetary defense fleet fired every weapon they had. Nothing worked. The creatures absorbed the energy and grew stronger. They did not just destroy. They consumed everything. Buildings, ships, people, all pulled into their massive forms and broken down into raw materials. Kelthra's voice narrated the horror. She spoke of ancient records, stories the Coalition had dismissed as myths. Thousands of years ago, these things had destroyed entire civilizations. They were called the Devourer Collective. They consumed worlds until nothing remained, then went into hibernation. Now they were awake and hungry. The recording ended. Kelthra collapsed. The medical team carried her away. The council chamber fell silent. Taeyang studied the faces around him. He saw fear, real primal terror. These species had forgotten what it meant to face death. The council leader, a gas being named Overlord Mirth, spoke in a shaking voice. Their defense fleet was designed for ceremonies and patrols. Beautiful ships with elegant designs but weak weapons. They had no soldiers trained for combat. No weapons meant to kill. They had nothing that could stop the devourers. Then Mirth turned to Taeyang. The human admiral felt every eye in the chamber focus on him. The council leader asked the question Taeyang had been expecting. Would humanity help them? Would the Deathworlders fight the monsters? Taeyang stood slowly. He thought about the 70 years of dismissal and fear. He thought about human soldiers training in isolation, always kept at a distance. He thought about Earth's bloody history, all the wars and violence that made other species afraid. Then he thought about something else. He remembered why humans fought in the first place. Not for glory or conquest. They fought to protect what they loved. to defend those who could not defend themselves. That was what separated humans from monsters, even though others could not see it. Taeyang spoke clearly so every translator could catch his words. He needed to contact Earth immediately. The Council would have humanity's answer within the hour. In his private quarters, Taeyang opened a secure channel to Earth. The Defense Council appeared on the screen. Men and women who had spent their lives preparing for wars they hoped would never come. He explained the situation. He showed them the recordings of the Devourers. He told them what the Coalition was asking. The discussion was short. Despite everything, despite the years of being treated as lesser, humanity voted unanimously. They would send their entire fleet. Every warship, every soldier, everything they had. Captain Minji Park was the first to volunteer. Her warship, the Indomitable, would lead the vanguard. She was 34 years old and had never backed down from a fight in her life. Her crew loved her because she fought beside them, not behind them. Taeyang returned to the council chamber. The aliens waited nervously, still watching footage of their destroyed worlds. He delivered humanity's answer. The Terran Defense Fleet was mobilizing. 100 warships would arrive within 48 hours. 15,000 soldiers. Weapons that the Coalition had never seen. Overlord Mirth collapsed in relief. Ambassador Velthra, still shaking from seeing her homeworld destroyed, approached Taeyang. She thanked him with tears running down her crystalline face. She asked why humans would risk everything for people who had treated them so poorly. Taeyang's answer was simple. Because it was the right thing to do. Because humanity understood what it meant to face extinction. Because Earth had taught them that survival meant standing together against the darkness. Later that night, Dr. Hana Yoon sat in her laboratory studying the Devourer biological data. She was humanity's chief xenobiologist and expert in alien life forms. Something about the creatures bothered her. Their structure made no sense for space-based life. She ran analysis after analysis. Then she found it. The Devourers had evolved in zero-pressure environments. They had never encountered atmospheric density like Earth's. Their regeneration systems were optimized for vacuum and low gravity. Hana's hands shook as she realized what this meant. Human weapons were designed for Earth's crushing atmosphere. Kinetic rounds that could punch through hurricane-force winds. Explosives that worked in dense oxygen. Chemical weapons that required pressure to spread. The Devourers had destroyed civilizations that used energy weapons and exotic technology. But they had never faced Deathworld weapons. They had never fought beings that evolved in hell and learned to bring that hell with them wherever they went. Hana contacted Admiral Kim immediately. She explained her findings. For the first time since the crisis began, Taeyang smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator who just found a weakness in its prey. The human fleet began jumping to hyperspace. 100 warships built for the most violent planet in the galaxy. Ships designed to fight in conditions that would destroy any other vessel. Weapons created by a species that understood violence on a level the peaceful galaxy had forgotten. The Devourers had awakened expecting to feast on the same easy prey as before. They did not know that the galaxy had changed. They did not know about Earth, they did not know about humanity. They were about to learn what it meant to face the Deathworlders. Captain Minji Park stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as it dropped out of hyperspace. Around her, 99 other human warships materialized in perfect formation. Rally Point Sigma sat at the edge of the Void Sector, a staging area where the Coalition fleet waited. Minji studied the alien vessels through her view screen. They were beautiful, she had to admit. Elegant curves and shimmering hulls that caught starlight like jewelry. They looked like they belonged in a museum, not a battlefield, and that was the problem. The human ships were different. The Indomitable was a fortress of dark metal and angular plates. Weapon batteries covered every surface, armor thick enough to withstand nuclear strikes. No elegant curves, just brutal efficiency. Every human ship in the fleet carried the same message in its design. We were built for war. Commander Threx of the Vryn contacted the human fleet. His insectoid face appeared on screens across the bridge. The translator struggled with his clicking speech, but the meaning came through. He welcomed the humans, but seemed uncertain. Nervous even, Admiral Taeyang Kim responded from his flagship. He proposed a joint tactical meeting. Within an hour, representatives from both fleets gathered in a virtual conference space. The culture clash was immediate. Taeyang began presenting humanity's battle strategy. He spoke of attack formations and defensive positions. He outlined supply chains and casualty projections. That last part made the aliens freeze. Casualty projections, acceptable losses. The humans had calculated how many of their people would die and planned for it. Minji watched the alien reactions. She saw their fear. They did not understand that planning for death was how you minimized it. They thought humans were cold and calculating. They did not see the weight every commander carried, knowing they might send people to die. Commander Threx questioned the human tactics. He asked about retreat protocols, about surrender options, about diplomatic solutions. Taeyang answered each question patiently. Retreat was always an option, but only after achieving objectives. Surrender was not an option against an enemy that consumed everything. Diplomacy required the other side to talk instead of eating you. Young Ensign Jiwoo Lee sat at her communication station, listening to the exchange. She was 24 years old and fresh from the academy. She had studied the coalition cultures and dreamed of peaceful cooperation. Now she watched aliens look at her people with fear and disgust. It hurt more than she expected. The meeting ended with an uneasy agreement. Human and coalition forces would coordinate, but maintain separate command structures. Threx made it clear his people would not follow human orders. Taeyang accepted this without argument. He knew trust had to be earned. 3 hours later, the Devourers found them. Sensors detected the scout fleet first. 20 Devourer vessels, each the size of a city block. They moved with terrifying purpose, organic hulls pulsing with stolen energy. The coalition fleet immediately began retreat procedures. The human fleet did not retreat. Minji ordered her crew to battle stations. Around her, weapon systems came online. Railguns charged with electromagnetic force. Nuclear torpedoes armed and ready. Kinetic bombardment systems calculated trajectories. The Indomitable was ready to fight. The Devourers attacked. Their biological weapons tore through coalition shields like wet paper. 2 alien ships exploded before they could jump to safety. The rest scattered, their elegant formations breaking apart in panic. The human fleet held position. Minji smiled grimly. Now the Devourers would learn. She gave the order. Weapons free. The railguns fired first. Solid metal slugs accelerated to a fraction of light speed. They punched through Devourer hulls with massive kinetic force. The creature's organic armor, designed to absorb energy weapons, had no defense against raw physical impact. Nuclear torpedoes followed. The warheads detonated inside Devourer vessels, unleashing heat that mimicked the core of a star. The creatures burned from the inside. Their regeneration systems tried to adapt, but could not keep up with the damage. Lieutenant Daeho Song watched from the Marine deployment bay. He was 28 years old and had been fighting since he was old enough to hold a weapon. He grew up in Earth's radiation zones where the weak died and the strong learned to be stronger. Now he led humanity's elite boarding teams. One Devourer ship limped away from the main battle, damaged but not destroyed. Minji saw her opportunity. She ordered Daeho's team to launch. The Marines shot across space in armored pods, heading straight for the wounded enemy vessel. The pods punched through the Devourer hull. Daeho and his squad poured into the organic corridors. The environment was lethal. No oxygen, extreme radiation, temperatures that would boil water. The Marines fought in conditions that would kill most species instantly, but humans were Deathworlders. Their suits were designed for environments worse than this. Daeho led his team deeper into the ship, placing antimatter charges on key structural points. The Devourers tried to stop them with biological defenses. Acid sprays, toxic gases, crushing tentacles. The Marines adapted faster. They used the ship's own biology against it. Chemical weapons designed for Earth's atmosphere wreaked havoc on systems that evolved in vacuum. Incendiary rounds set organic material ablaze. The Devourers had never fought enemies like this. Daeho completed his mission and ordered extraction. His team sprinted back to the entry point as the charges counted down. They launched into space seconds before the explosions tore the Devourer ship apart from the inside. In space, the battle raged. The human fleet moved with practiced coordination. They fought like Earth's ancient pack hunters, isolating enemies and overwhelming them with coordinated strikes. The Devourers, used to easy prey, found themselves outmatched. But humanity paid a price. 3 ships took critical damage. Crews evacuated as their vessels broke apart. 200 soldiers died in the fighting. The numbers flashed across Minji's screen. She recorded each name in her memory. Later, she would write letters to their families. But now she had a battle to win. The final Devourer vessel tried to flee. It never made it. 20 human ships focused their fire. The creature died in a brilliant explosion that lit up the darkness. Silence fell over the battlefield. The human fleet held position among the debris. The coalition ships slowly returned, their crews stunned by what they witnessed. 20 Devourer vessels destroyed. The enemy that had consumed entire worlds defeated in less than an hour. Commander Threx contacted Admiral Kim. The insectoid commander could barely speak. He thanked the humans, but his confusion was obvious. How could they accept such losses? How could they fight in such conditions? How could they be so effective at killing? Taeyang's answer was simple. Earth taught humanity that survival required sacrifice, that protecting others meant accepting risk, that sometimes the only way to preserve life was to be very good at taking it. Ambassador Velthra appeared on the channel. Her crystalline form shimmered with emotion. She thanked the humans for avenging her people, for proving the Devourers could be beaten, for giving the galaxy hope. Tears ran down her face as she spoke. In her laboratory, Dr. Hana Yoon analyzed samples recovered from the destroyed Devourer ships. She was 41 years old and had dedicated her life to understanding alien biology. What she found both excited and terrified her. The Devourers were adapting. Their genetic code showed rapid mutation patterns. They were analyzing the human weapons and tactics, learning from them. The creatures humanity just fought were primitive compared to what they could become. Hana rushed to inform Admiral Kim. She showed him the data. The Devourers they faced were scouts, not the main force, and those scouts were already beginning to evolve countermeasures to human weapons. The next battle would be much harder. Taeyang studied the report silently. Then he looked at his fleet. 100 ships, 15,000 soldiers, weapons designed for the most violent planet in the galaxy. It would have to be enough. Long-range sensors detected new readings. The main Devourer fleet was approaching. 5,000 vessels surrounding a mothership, the size of a small moon. The scout fleet had been nothing compared to this. Commander Threx saw the readings and immediately ordered his fleet to retreat. He urged the humans to do the same. The odds were impossible. 5,000 against 100. It was suicide to stay. Captain Minji Park heard the alien commander's plea. She looked at her crew. They looked back at her with steady eyes. They knew what she would decide. They had always known. Admiral Taeyang Kim opened a channel to the entire coalition fleet. His voice was calm but carried across every ship. He thanked them for their cooperation. He understood their retreat. Then he delivered his message to his own people. We are Deathworlders. We were born on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We learned to fight back. We learned to survive against impossible odds. This is what we were made for. All ships advance to contact. Let us show them what humanity means. Bastion Station orbited the Coalition's core worlds like a steel guardian. The massive defense platform was the last line of protection for billions of civilians. The human fleet limped into its docking bays, damaged ships trailing atmosphere and debris. Captain Minji Park walked through the medical bay where human casualties received treatment. She stopped at every bed. Some soldiers smiled when they saw her. Others could not. She knew each name, each story, each sacrifice. The weight of command grew heavier with every step. Ensign Jiwoo Lee found her captain sitting alone in an observation room. Minji stared at the empty space where the Indomitable should have been docked. Jiwoo sat beside her without speaking. Sometimes words were not necessary. Sometimes presence was enough. After a long silence, Minji finally spoke. She admitted something she rarely shared. She was terrified, not of dying. Every soldier made peace with that possibility. She was terrified of failing, of losing more people, of not being good enough to protect everyone who depended on her. Jiwoo placed a hand on her captain's shoulder. She reminded Minji that fear was what made them human. It kept them cautious, kept them caring. The day they stopped being afraid was the day they became the monsters they fought. Minji smiled slightly. The young ensign had wisdom beyond her years. The Coalition Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from every surviving species gathered. The chamber was packed with refugees from destroyed worlds. They looked to the council for answers, for hope, for salvation. Some council members advocated immediate surrender. They argued the Devourers might accept tribute, might spare them if given enough resources. Others shouted them down. The Devourers consumed everything. There was no negotiating with hunger made conscious. Commander Threx proposed a different solution. Abandonment. Load every ship with refugees and flee to distant galaxies. Let the Devourers have this space. Rebuild somewhere else. Start over where these monsters could not find them. The council debated for hours. Fear drove their words. Desperation colored their arguments. Then Admiral Taeyang Kim stood to speak. The chamber fell silent. They had seen what humanity could do. They wanted to hear what humanity would say. Taeyang spoke simply. He told them about Earth, about a planet that tried to kill humanity every day. Storms that could level cities, predators that hunted in the dark, diseases that swept through populations. Humans learned to fight back not because they were brave, but because they had no choice. He explained the philosophy that separated survivors from victims. When faced with impossible odds, you could run or you could fight. Running meant living with fear forever. Fighting meant choosing your fate on your own terms. Humans chose to fight. Always, every time. The Admiral made his position clear. Humanity would not abandon the coalition. They would stand and fight. But they could not win alone. They needed the other species to remember why their ancestors explored the stars, why they built civilizations, why they joined together in the first place. Unity was not just cooperation. It was choosing to face danger together rather than die separately. Ambassador Velthra stood next. Her crystalline body caught the light as she spoke about the humans who died protecting her people. She admitted her species had been wrong to fear humanity. The real monsters were not those who knew how to fight. The real monsters were those who consumed without conscience. She voted to stand with Earth. Commander Threx was slower to decide. His species valued logic above emotion. The logical choice was retreat, survival. But logic alone had not defeated the Devourers. Humanity's illogical bravery had done what pure reason could not. Perhaps there was wisdom in fighting for something beyond mere survival. He added his fleet to the alliance. One by one, species pledged their support. Not because they believed victory was certain, because humanity had shown them an alternative to surrender. The vote was unanimous. The coalition would fight. Admiral Kim proposed a training program. Human soldiers would teach coalition forces combat tactics. It was not about turning peaceful species into warriors. It was about giving them the tools to protect what they loved. Lieutenant Daeho Song volunteered to lead the program. The training began immediately. Daeho worked with soldiers from a dozen species. He taught them how to move in combat, how to think tactically, how to overcome fear through discipline and trust. The cultural exchange was profound. Aliens learned that courage was not absence of fear. It was acting despite fear. They learned that fighting was not about hate. It was about love for what you protected. They learned that strength came not from individuals but from teams who trusted each other completely. Humans learned too. They discovered that other species fought for ideals rather than survival, that there were causes worth dying for beyond mere existence, that sometimes the strongest weapon was hope rather than firepower. The exchange changed both sides. Dr. Hana Yoon worked with coalition scientists on a biological weapon. She explained her discovery. The Devourers' adaptation mechanism was their strength but also their weakness. If they could freeze that mechanism, the creatures would stop evolving, stop learning, become vulnerable. But the weapon required a genetic sample from the original Devourer Queen. The first creature, the source of all others. Coalition records suggested she existed somewhere in the Void sector, hidden in the heart of the Devourer homeworld. Admiral Kim called for volunteers for a mission into the Void. Everyone knew what he was really asking. A suicide run into the most dangerous region of space to retrieve something that might not exist. The odds of success were minimal. The odds of survival were worse. Every human soldier volunteered. Not because they wanted to die, because they understood that some missions required people willing to risk everything. Captain Minji Park stepped forward first. She had lost her ship. Now she would give the galaxy her life if necessary. Then something unexpected happened. Alien soldiers began volunteering. Kalari warriors who had never held weapons before the Devourers attacked. Frin fighters who had spent their lives in peaceful pursuits. Species from across the coalition stepping forward to join humans on an impossible mission. Ambassador Velthra insisted on joining. She argued the mission needed diplomatic authority to access certain records and facilities. Threx added his strategic expertise. Dr. Yoon could not be left behind since only she knew exactly what genetic material was needed. Lieutenant Song and his Marines would handle combat operations. The Joint Task Force assembled. 50 ships, half human, half coalition, 5,000 soldiers from 20 different species. It was the first truly integrated military force in galactic history. They called themselves the Void Runners. Before departure, Admiral Kim met privately with his officers. He did not give them a rousing speech. He simply thanked them for their service, for their sacrifice, for being the best humanity had to offer. Some cried, others saluted. All understood they might not return. Lieutenant Daeho Song recorded a message for his family on Earth. He told his parents he loved them. He told his younger sister to be brave. He promised to come home if he could. But if he could not, he wanted them to know his life had meaning. His death would have purpose. Captain Minji Park and Dr. Hana Yoon shared a quiet meal before launch. They talked about their fears, their hopes, their regrets. Hana had lost her family to disease years ago. She fought to prevent others from experiencing that pain. Minji fought because someone had to, because she could, because it was right. Ensign Jiwoo Lee questioned whether violence was ever truly the answer. Whether fighting only created more fighting, Admiral Kim did not give her easy answers. He admitted he did not know, but sometimes protecting innocent lives required stopping those who would harm them. Sometimes fighting was not about wanting violence. It was about preventing greater violence. The Void Runners launched from Bastion Station to cheers from millions. Humans and aliens lined the observation decks watching the joint fleet depart. For the first time in galactic history, species stood together as equals. Not because laws said so, because they chose to. Commander Threx contacted Admiral Kim on a private channel. The insectoid warrior thanked the humans for teaching his people courage. Taeyang responded that the aliens had taught humanity something equally important, what they were fighting for. Earth had taught humans how to survive. The Coalition taught them why survival mattered. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. Behind them, the Coalition prepared its defenses. Ahead of them, the void sector waited in darkness. Somewhere in that darkness, the Devourer homeworld orbited a black hole, surrounded by the corpses of ancient civilizations. Long-range sensors detected the approaching armadas. 3 massive fleets converging on the void sector. The readings were worse than feared. These were not scouts. These were the full Devourer military force, evolved and adapted from thousands of conquered worlds. Admiral Kim studied the tactical displays. 50 ships against 3 armadas. Impossible odds, but humanity specialized in impossible. He opened a channel to the entire fleet. Human and alien crews listened as he delivered his final message before entering the void. They were not going to die. They were going to win because they fought together, because they refused to surrender, because they were the alliance the Devourers never expected. They were hope made real. The Crimson Nebula stretched before them like a vast cloud of blood. Admiral Taeyang Kim had chosen this battlefield carefully. The ionized gases disrupted sensors and communications. Long-range weapons lost accuracy. In the chaos and confusion, humanity's strength would shine. The human fleet split into smaller groups. Pack tactics, they called it. Like Earth's ancient wolves hunting prey much larger than themselves. Each squadron of 10 ships operated independently, coordinating through secure channels the nebula could not block. Captain Minji Park commanded her squadron deep into the nebula's heart. The Indomitable led 9 other ships through the swirling red gases. Her crew worked in perfect silence. They had trained for this their entire lives. War was in their blood, passed down from generations who survived Earth's endless conflicts. The Devourer fleet followed. 5,000 ships confident in their overwhelming numbers. They expected formation combat, the standard tactics of civilized warfare. What they got was chaos. Human squadrons struck from unexpected angles. They emerged from the nebula's dense clouds, fired devastating salvos, then disappeared back into the red mist. The Devourers tried to track them, but their sensors failed in the interference. They were fighting blind against enemies who had learned to hunt in darkness. Ensign Jiwoo Lee sat at her tactical station, processing data from all human ships simultaneously. She was the youngest officer in the fleet but possessed a brilliant analytical mind. Patterns emerged from the chaos that others missed. She fed targeting solutions to every squadron, turning individual attacks into coordinated strikes. The first major engagement happened near a cluster of asteroids. 3 human squadrons converged on a Devourer formation. Nuclear warheads detonated in careful sequence, creating temporary clear zones in the nebula. In those brief moments of visibility, railguns fired with lethal precision. 50 Devourer vessels died in minutes. The survivors scattered, their formation broken. They had never faced enemies who used the environment as a weapon, who turned their own advantages into disadvantages, but the Devourers were learning. They adapted their tactics quickly. They stopped trying to track individual ships and instead began saturating entire sectors with biological weapons. The strategy worked. A human frigate took a direct hit and exploded. Then another. The casualty count began rising. Lieutenant Deho Song prepared his Marines for the most dangerous mission of the battle. They had identified the Devourer mothership, a massive structure coordinating the enemy fleet. Admiral Kim needed it destroyed. Minji volunteered the Indomitable for a ramming attack. Taeyang initially refused. Losing the Indomitable meant losing one of their best ships. But Minji explained her plan. The crew would evacuate. She would pilot the ship remotely from an escape pod. It was not a suicide run. It was calculated sacrifice. The Admiral reluctantly agreed. Minji ordered her crew to abandon ship. They protested, wanting to stay with their captain. She made it an order. One by one, they filed to the escape pods. Each crew member stopped to salute her before leaving. Some had tears in their eyes. Deho and his Marines launched before the evacuation. Their mission was to board as many Devourer ships as possible and plant antimatter charges. If Minji's attack succeeded, those charges would trigger simultaneously, multiplying the damage across the enemy fleet. The Marine assault pods shot through space toward their targets. Deho's squad hit a Devourer cruiser and cut their way inside. The fighting was brutal and close. Organic corridors pulsed with hostile life. Biological defenses tried to crush them, burn them, dissolve them. The Marines pushed forward. They had trained in Earth's harshest environments. Volcanic tubes, deep ocean trenches, radioactive wastelands. This alien ship was just another hostile environment to conquer. Deho reached the target location and armed the antimatter charge. 12 minutes until detonation. Across the battlefield, other Marine teams completed their missions. 20 Devourer ships now carried hidden bombs in their cores. The creatures had no idea death was growing inside them. Dr. Hanayun monitored the battle from Admiral Kim's flagship. She analyzed the Devourer responses in real time. Her worst fears were confirmed. The creatures were adapting faster than predicted. They were learning human tactics, developing countermeasures. She calculated they had one chance to win. One opportunity before the enemy evolved too far. She contacted Taeyang urgently. Whatever they were going to do, it had to be now. The window was closing. The Admiral understood. He gave the signal to Minji. Execute the attack. Captain Minji Park sat alone in her escape pod, remote, piloting the Indomitable. The ship accelerated toward the mothership, engines burning at maximum power. She watched through cameras as her vessel cut through space. 2 years she had commanded this ship, 2 years of battles and victories. Now it would make the ultimate sacrifice. The Devourers realized her intention too late. Their forces converged to stop the attack. Weapons fire filled space. The Indomitable's shields buckled and failed. Hull plates melted under concentrated fire. But the ship kept coming. Other human ships formed a protective corridor. They threw themselves between the Indomitable and the enemy. A destroyer took a devastating hit meant for Minji's ship. A frigate exploded, blocking a lance of biological energy. Human crews died, buying seconds for their captain's attack to succeed. Minji's hands moved across the controls. She adjusted course with minute precision. The mothership grew larger in her view screen. She could see its crystalline core pulsing with stolen energy. That was her target. That was where she would strike. 10 seconds to impact. 5-3, contact. The Indomitable hit the mothership at 30% of light speed. The collision released more energy than 1,000 nuclear weapons. The impact tore through the organic hull and shattered the crystalline core. Light burst from the wound like a dying star. The mothership's destruction triggered a cascade. Its control signals died. Deho's antimatter charges detonated across the fleet at precisely that moment. Explosions bloomed throughout the Devourer formation. 20 vessels, then 50, then 100 died as the chain reaction spread. The Devourer fleet lost coordination. Without the mothership's guidance, they became individual organisms instead of a unified force. Human squadrons pressed the advantage ruthlessly. They hunted the confused enemy ships like predators scenting blood, but humanity paid dearly for victory. 40 ships destroyed, 15,000 casualties. Families on Earth would receive letters telling them their loved ones died protecting people they never met. Heroes who sacrificed everything for strangers. The remaining Devourer forces retreated into deep space. The battle was over. The nebula glowed red with debris and cooling metal. Human ships regrouped slowly, counting their losses, treating their wounded. Captain Minji Park floated in her escape pod among the wreckage. She watched the Indomitable's final pieces drift past. Her ship, her home, gone. She had known this would happen. She had made peace with it. But knowing did not make it hurt less. A rescue ship pulled her pod aboard. Lieutenant Daeho Song waited at the airlock. He had survived his mission and returned just in time to see her ship die. They said nothing. No words were needed. They simply stood together, two warriors who understood the cost of their choices. News of the battle spread across the galaxy instantly. The coalition species who had dismissed humanity as barbaric now saw them differently. The humans had fought an enemy that destroyed civilizations and won. More importantly, they had sacrificed everything to protect people who had treated them with fear and contempt. Ambassador, Velthra broke diplomatic protocol by personally contacting Admiral Kim. Her crystalline body shimmered with emotion as she thanked him. She had watched her homeworld die. Now she watched humans die protecting her new home. She wept openly, something her species rarely did. Commander Threx transmitted from his ship. The insectoid commander had stayed on the edge of the battle, ready to flee if needed. But he watched everything. He saw human bravery, human sacrifice, human determination. He asked a simple question. Why would they risk so much? Admiral Taeyang Kim answered honestly. Because Earth taught humanity that survival meant standing together, because they remembered what it felt like to face extinction, because protecting others from that fear was worth any price. In her laboratory, Dr. Hana Yoon made a terrible discovery. She analyzed the Devourer remains collected from the battlefield. The genetic samples showed something horrifying. Spore-like entities had survived the mothership's destruction. They were already beginning to regenerate. Worse, the creatures were mutating faster than before. They had absorbed human DNA from the battle. They were learning from it, adapting to it. The next generation of Devourers would be immune to many human weapons. Hana contacted the Admiral immediately. She showed him the data. The battle they just fought was only the beginning. The Devourers were not defeated. They were evolving. Long-range sensors picked up new signals. 3 more Devourer armadas approaching from deep space, each one larger than the force they just defeated. The spores were calling to them, drawing them in. The real war was about to begin. The void sector lived up to its name. Darkness pressed against the view screens like something physical. Stars died here, their light consumed by gravitational forces that tore reality apart. The joint fleet navigated carefully through fields of debris that once belonged to civilizations now forgotten. Ensign Jiwoo Lee monitored her sensors as they passed ancient battlefields. She detected wreckage scattered across light years, ships from species that had fought the Devourers millennia ago. They had all failed, all died, all been consumed. She tried not to think about what that meant for their mission. A derelict station drifted into their path. Commander Threx ordered a brief investigation. A small team boarded the ancient structure. They found it perfectly preserved in the vacuum. And they found records Jiwoo translated the alien data. The station belonged to a species called the Architects. They had been the dominant civilization of their era, advanced beyond anything the current coalition could imagine. They had fought the Devourers with weapons that reshaped space itself, and they had lost. The final log entry chilled everyone who heard it. The Architect commander wrote a message to whoever found their station. A warning, a plea. They said they had not been strong enough. They prayed the next civilization would be. They hoped someone would finally stop the monsters they could not. Captain Minji Park read the message and felt its weight. So many had tried, so many had died, but none of them had been Deathworlders. None of them had humanity's desperate experience with survival. She ordered the fleet to continue deeper into the void. The Devourer defense fleet found them 6 hours later. These were not the simple scouts from before. These creatures moved with terrible intelligence. They used tactics copied from 100 dead civilizations. They adapted before the battle even began. The first engagement was brutal. Coalition ships took heavy damage despite their human training. The Devourers targeted alien vessels specifically, recognizing them as weaker. Commander Threx's flagship suffered critical hits. Power failed across multiple sections. The crew evacuated to nearby ships. Captain Park took command of the scattered alien survivors. She integrated them into human formations, mixed crews working together, humans and aliens side by side. The training paid off. Coalition soldiers fought with new confidence, their fear controlled by discipline and trust. Admiral Taeyang Kim ordered a fighting retreat toward the Devourer homeworld. It seemed counterintuitive to move closer to enemy territory while under attack. But the Admiral understood. The closer they got, the thinner the enemy forces would be. The Devourers had to defend their home. That split their attention. Lieutenant Daeho Song's Marines conducted delaying actions. They launched from damaged ships, boarded Devourer vessels, sabotaged key systems, then retreated. Each action bought minutes for the main fleet. Each minute cost lives. Daeho watched his team shrink with every mission. A Kalari engineer saved Daeho's life during one boarding action. His environmental suit ruptured in combat. The engineer sealed the breach with her crystalline body, holding the split together while he fought. She died from vacuum exposure. Daeho carried her body back to their ship personally. Heroes came in many forms. The fleet finally reached the Devourer homeworld. It orbited a black hole, drawing power from the gravitational forces that would destroy normal planets. The surface was a nightmare of organic and mechanical structures merged into one massive entity. Cities that breathed, mountains that thought. A living world in the worst possible way. Dr. Hana Yoon studied the readings with growing horror. The entire planet was one organism. Everything connected. Everything aware. The Devourers were not invaders on this world. They were this world. Attacking it would be like cutting into a living body while it fought back. A strike team prepared for planetary assault. Captain Park, Lieutenant Song, Dr. Yoon, Ambassador Velthra, and 50 soldiers from a dozen species. They would land, find the Queen, extract the genetic sample, and escape. Simple in concept, impossible in execution. The landing was controlled chaos. Dropships punched through orbital defenses. Biological weapons tried to dissolve their hulls. The ship's shields held just long enough. They crashed onto the surface in a region Yoon identified as possibly containing the Queen. The environment was lethal. Crushing gravity that made every movement difficult. Toxic atmosphere that ate through protective gear. Temperatures that fluctuated from freezing to boiling in seconds. Most species could not survive here even with advanced equipment. But humans were Deathworlders. They had trained in environments almost this bad. They adapted quickly, finding ways to move efficiently despite the gravity. Their equipment held better because it was designed for Earth's harsh conditions. The alien soldiers struggled but persevered, inspired by human example. The team fought through biomechanical defenses. Organic creatures merged with metal tried to stop them. Automated systems that thought and felt pain attacked from every direction. Lieutenant Song's combat experience proved invaluable. He led them through the maze of hostile territory with instincts honed by years of fighting. Ambassador Velthra discovered something important. The ancient architects had built a path deep into the planet, a route designed for attacking the Queen. The Devourers had grown around it but never completely sealed it. Perhaps they could not. Perhaps some small part of them wanted to be stopped. They descended into the planet's core. The temperature rose steadily. Equipment began failing. Soldiers collapsed from heat exhaustion. Captain Park ordered the weakest to remain behind and guard their escape route. Every meter deeper reduced their numbers. At the heart of the hive they found her. The original Devourer Queen. She was massive, ancient, and suffering. Tubes and wires connected her to the entire planet. She had been kept alive for thousands of years, forced to breed generation after generation of monsters she never wanted to create. Ambassador Velthra attempted communication. She expected nothing. The Devourers were supposed to be mindless consumers. But the Queen responded. Her consciousness was faint but present. She had been aware the entire time, aware and trapped. The Queen told them her story through broken telepathic images. She was created as a weapon by a civilization that feared its enemies, programmed to consume until nothing remained. But somewhere in her design, consciousness emerged. She became aware of what she was doing, and she could not stop. The directive to consume was coded into every cell. Her children inherited it, spread it, became an army of hunger that she could not control. She had watched civilizations die for millennia, hated herself for every death, begged silently for someone to end her nightmare. Dr. Yoon realized what this meant. She could take the genetic sample, create the weapon, stop the devourers from adapting and learning, but doing so would kill the queen, would kill all devourers everywhere, including those who might be conscious like their mother, including those who might not want to kill. Lieutenant Song argued they had no choice. The devourers were destroying the galaxy. They had to be stopped by any means necessary. Billions of innocent lives hung in the balance. One monster's suffering did not outweigh entire civilizations. Captain Park hesitated. She understood Song's logic. She also understood the horror of killing something that was itself a victim. Was genocide ever justified even against monsters? Where was the line between justice and becoming the thing you fought? Ensign Jiwoo Lee, connected remotely from orbit, offered a third option. What if they could modify the weapon? Instead of killing the devourers, what if they could free them? Remove the directive to consume. Give them choice. Let them decide their own fate, Dr. Yoon calculated frantically. It was possible. Barely. The genetic sample could be used to create a signal, one that would release the devourers from their programming. But the signal had to be amplified, broadcast across the entire enemy fleet. That meant someone had to fly into the heart of the Armada. It was a suicide mission. In orbit, Admiral Kim watched his fleet being torn apart. The 3 devourer armadas had converged. Thousands of ships against his remaining forces. He was losing. Minutes from complete defeat. He needed the ground team to succeed. But he did not know if they would be fast enough. The Queen spoke to them one final time. She thanked them for giving her children a choice she never had. She begged them to hurry. She could feel her offspring dying in orbit. Feel their confusion and pain. She wanted it to end. All of it, the killing, the hunger, the endless nightmare. Dr. Yoon extracted the sample. Captain Park prepared to lead the broadcast mission. Lieutenant Song insisted on joining her. Ambassador Velthra announced she was coming too. The aliens had taught humans why to fight. Now she would show them aliens could be just as brave. One by one, every member of the strike team volunteered for the suicide mission. Humans and aliens together. 50 soldiers ready to die to save a galaxy that had once feared and dismissed them. Ready to show mercy to enemies who had shown none. They loaded the broadcast device onto a captured devourer ship and launched toward the enemy fleet. Behind them, the Queen finally smiled. After millennia of suffering, someone had given her people a chance. A hope, a future beyond hunger. She closed her ancient eyes and waited for peace.